Literally. Seas over there. A perfect day. Despite this. Now, all I want to do. Now you see, we've got a Radio 4 programme on Reform UK. Sometimes I'll have such things on. It's been actually very interesting the last few days. Not that much is interesting, but it's been interesting the last few days to listen to the sort of BBC approach to what happened on Wednesday. They had Steve Bannon on half an hour ago. Now, the problem is, you see all of these grander analyses. I spent 4 or 5 months somewhere on the coast. Now, I never need anywhere. I much prefer to live like this. Oh yeah, it's like moan, moan, moan. Anticyclone greyness. The outdoor liver. My God, it's been wonderful to have 2 weeks with no bloody wind. Just catch up. Get into the groove of... Right. I spent 5 months somewhere and it was tragic. Down in the southwest of this revolting boot. Several people, every other word coming from them. And they weren't actually racist people. I know this. I know they're actually not racist. But every other word, they drop in the word immigrant. Or brown people, or... It's just... Now, okay, they're older. Younger people don't do that. The bizarre thing, Britain is not a racist country. But I wish they'd get off their high horses. A group of people, businessmen, all who are businessmen, for whatever reason, and it doesn't matter, they decided, it's the past, they decided the way they're going to attempt to get power, Mr. Tice, Mr. Farage, all of these people, they're going to use the issue of immigration. Now, I personally am kind of more or less in favour of there shouldn't be any borders anywhere. I spent 25 years of my life living that way, 30 years really. But why can't the left or the classic liberal, social democrat, humanitarian, internationalist, which is anybody who reads Private Eye, more or less, why can't they accept something? The issue of immigration, when it was politicised, is unbeatable. I mean, I was listening to a programme on Trump. Not on Trump, on we're going to deport 15 million people. Well, you see, nobody would put under there. If I was living, I am the sort of person, I've lived in places technically illegally, just sort of slipped in and worked illegally, etc., etc. Me, if I'd have slipped into America a year ago, when did I go through? I went to Miami. I passed through Miami. Not in transit, you had to change plane properly, change carrier, so I actually spent an afternoon in America in 2017, December. If I'd have just decided, I'm going to wander off, if I'd have met a Miamian or anybody on the plane and okay, I like you, I'm going to live here. If I were an illegal, if me, a white Englishman, and they love white Englishmen more than anybody, really, well, kind of. But if I was there and had overstayed, I would entirely accept it that if anybody finds me, they're going to deport me. That's the way it's always been. You see, there's something very wrong in all of this. Because if you actually care about brown people, which I do, first of all, you don't turn it into something that it isn't. It's not some attack on brown immigrants. Oh, you're all very well. You're a rich white... I've never been rich at all. You've got a professional qualification. I gave that up because it was contrary to the future of my daughters. Apparently there were 2 billion humans took flights last year. It's like a bit much. Anyway, to the point. I just wish that the politicians, but particularly the politicians on the left. Now, okay, those who have set up their sanctuary cities in America, fair dinkum. If you can stop a group being moved, because there's always going to be a negative. Oh, there it is. There's always going to be a negative to any change of residential arrangements for anybody, whatever colour they are. And plenty of people who've gone to live in America. Well, apparently there are many people coming through from India, is it? Who are transiting into America that way, illegally. Actually, it's not Indians, it's, is it Vietnamese? Well, they've got plenty of money. I mean, the only money I've got in this world, that's worth probably 500 quid, only because it's got a newish MOT. That's it. I got more money than me. They just happen to be brown. But they're coming in, they're paying money. You got to pay money to get into America, even if you're, well, particularly if you're trafficked. A white person, an educated person, would have no more advantage up against their system. I mean, it always comes down to, but I have no hard feelings. If somebody is employed by Hewlett Packard or wherever and is senior enough in the organisation, and there can be an application to have that person transfer countries, and something is written up making it out that they're a key worker or whatever the criteria are, and some quite large fee is paid, I suppose. Those people are always, they've always been allowed to move around. When I was young, when I was in my 20s, you could go to countries. I did. I happened to slip in because I had a professional pilot's charter pilot ticket, but it's no big deal. We were kind of the lowest of the low. But you'd encounter people who might be like a university principal. I lived on the island of St. Christopher, which was very poor. But there was some kind of American university there. I'm sure they'd invested money. Well, they had invested money. The top brass at that university, I'm sure they were given the equivalent of golden visas, or they bought their way in. The elite always do that. If you're not in the elite, I've never been in the elite, I just happened to have an existence which kind of had a bizarre little free pass. I could get in almost anywhere without a visa. Half the time just go in the back door as a pilot. But when are the left going to accept the issue of immigration was lost? I mean, my only daughter exists because of immigration. We didn't have to sign any forms or anything. I don't think we even had to pay any money 27 years ago. But it's changed, it's lost, and it's become politicised in this. It's not an evil way, but it is crass. But you can't fight it at the moment. In 20 years' time, maybe 10 years' time, when all these old, slightly unreconstructed not really racists, but these old people white old people who mutter, Wales is full of them. I meandered around just after the Brexit, in the 2 years after the Brexit vote, and it just so happens that it was not why I lived there. But there were basically no brown people at all for many kilometres. And meandering, speaking with the farmers, oh, what do you think of what happened last year? This would be in 2017. Every male farmer said, well, it'll keep the black folk out. Or they quite often say things like, well, the state of the country is because of the black folk. Which was all bullshit. And they didn't even really mean it. But that generation, a bit older than me, they'll die off. And yes, I very much doubt that those who are 30 and 40 now and 50 will be speaking like that in 10 years or 20 years' time. So we may have a different political reality in 10 or 20 years, but I wish people would just stop. It is so boring, the way it's all been hyped out of proportion. Oh, it's all very well you speaking like that. You haven't been banged up in a, what do they call them? Refugee centre, detention centre for 2 years. Absolutely. I'm sure the conditions are appalling, etc. But, yeah, with a small percentage of exception, and we know who they are, the Windrush and a few others who have suffered genuine injustice in their application processes, or having been settled for many years and then falsely the administrative bureaucratic system goes against them in an unjust way. That's kind of going to be a minority. Why did I turn this camera on? Because we need more than anything. See, I enjoy my life. I spend my time. Just occasionally, most of the time I think more poetically, but sometimes I turn myself to thinking of what are the better ways of talking about things in the future. I mean, the one interesting thing about this week that's just happened is it's put people on notice, your Labour politicians and others. Things can change. Now, the only thing, nothing's going to change the massive injustices, which there are. There are genuine massive injustices throughout this society. I know. I've seen them from inside. I give up because none of those suffering the injustice are capable to diligently fight them. They used to be able to, but they're not anymore. I give up. Nothing's going to change that. Even if some magnificent new valiant, only beloved Trumpite organisation run by Malala took over with 60% of the vote. It's not going to change that. It just isn't going to happen. It is so ingrained, and you need a mature citizenry to fight back. You always have, and you always will. That's not going to change. But at the very least, for my daughter's generation, for their benefit, I wish the rhetoric could change. And I ponder that, and I work on that. And I've made lots of audios about it and lots of bits of video the last few months about it. And I'm just going to try and put them up over the winter, if it stays warm enough to function, which it is here. The end.